Welcome back to the Something's Wrong Here podcast. I am Randy.
I'm Ken-Zee.
And in the studio tonight, we have a guest, Neal. And we're going to talk with Neal about what's wrong with unions. How you doing, Neal?
Well, how are you guys?
Good.
I have 3 stitches in the back of my left leg, and it hurts like hell. I'm in. Let's be real, though. Let's dive right in.
Sure.
Let's find out, for starters, why are you qualified to talk about unions?
Well, gosh dang, I'm a fifth generation union guy, I suppose, would be my first qualification. I grew up around it. I grew up with my grandpa and my dad, both being union members, and now I am a union masonry contractor here in Kansas City.
Yeah, you're my boss.
That's true. That is true.
So, risky business happening here tonight.
As a business owner, why do you choose to be union over non-union?
Well, first my grandpa would roll over in his grave. Second,
Fair enough.
Second, my dad, is a strong union advocate. I think that we all are when it comes down to, just treating workers the way that they want to be treated, making sure that their wages are covered, their benefits are covered, and when they go home at the end of the week, they feel satisfied with their paycheck.
That's always important. I mean, we're not out there working for free, and, the unions do help with that. What do you think about the current state of unions? Because, I don't know, 60 years ago, they were pretty much a must. They were a need. That need has changed a little bit. They were breaking knees and locking people out and using force to get what they want. And what they wanted was a better wage, a better living for their workers. It doesn't quite work the same that way anymore. So
it doesn't. And you're absolutely correct. So there used to be kind of a sense of, cowboy shit. Mm-hmm. It used to be pouring sugar in diesel gas tanks. It used to be carrying a pistol on your hip as a union rep. It used to be fighting for your right to a 40-hour work week and a 2-day weekend, which is, you can thank the folks that brought you the weekend. It's the union boys. Mm-hmm. This current state of union, obviously is, for me at least, it's more of a corporate ploy, I would say, at least from personal experience, to where I don't have the representation that we had 10, 20, 30, especially 60 years ago, mm-hmm. where people would fight for the contractor, fight for the member, and we would, as members, as contractors for the union would benefit from that. There's nothing more than a fair wage that I want for my men and women. It just goes back to the old school days of, what do we used to do? What could we do? What's legal these days? What's illegal, and a lot of people run into, especially, business reps across all unions, not just ours, but run into the issue of legality and what they're actually capable of. Mm-hmm. So the current state, I would say, is, at least for us poor, we contain a very, very, very minor piece of the market share. And we're fighting for it while our union wage rates are going up, and there's no way that the market is going to maintain our wage rate mm-hmm. at this pace.
So what do you think needs to change or be corrected to solve that issue?
As a business owner, it might be different than a member. There are a few things. Like I said, I grew up around it. My dad had 18 years in the hall. My grandpa was 27 years before him. I'm very versed, probably more than the average member or business owner, in the contract and in the law, the bylaws of the union. I would say that one of the things that needs to change is ultimately there are many local labor unions involved with the Builders Association. And the Builders Association and their affiliated locals essentially write our contract for us without me or any other business owner having a say in what the dollar raise is, what the contract amount is, all those kinds of things. I think that a pay freeze would be, if that were to be implemented, that would be something that would be beneficial to all companies across Kansas City, bricklayers and otherwise.
Tough to convince people to be happy with what they've got, though, right?
Well, it is. I went to the wage allocations meeting last night, and I was standing there, and I had a guy reach out to me, and from across the room, he said, "Hey, this isn't about you. This is about fucking us."
Yeah.
And I get that.
So,
but I've been a dues paying member for my entire career as a bricklayer too. I'm going on my 15th year.
Yeah.
So
let's dive into, we've talked a little bit about unions. Let's go non-union for a second.
Okay.
You obviously hate everyone non-union, right?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, obviously that was a setup. That was fun. We know you don't hate non-union. So could you elaborate non-union versus where you turn into hatred? Because I've seen your hatred. And I know some of the contractors it's for, and it's valid. And I'd like to hear in your words, what is the difference between... Where is the turning point between non-union contractor and you're perfectly fine seeing another masonry non-union contractor operate? And where's the turning point for go to hell?
So, great question. Loaded question. I don't think that there is any way to differentiate between union and non-union help as long as the work is quality. So the second that somebody, union or non, puts bad work in the wall and sells a bad product or fails to meet inspections or does something that is poor towards the craft, then all of a sudden that isn't just bad for that individual company, it's bad for
the trade.
The trade itself.
So with that turning point in mind, knowing what you've said before in the office and things, it really also turns to when it's not a bad product versus when it's not a fair wage, when it's not a livable, when it's not a fair company.
Well, so yes,
I guess I'm defining rat at this point.
You are, but there's I guess to preface your question before your question actually can take play, the unions set prevailing wage, and we're lucky enough to be able to work in a state like Missouri that is not a right to work state. So the unions set the prevailing wage, the state sets the minimum wage. So that is the argument. So the bottom dollar is set by the state at $7.25 or whatever it is in Missouri. It might be $15. I don't keep up.
I honestly don't know at this point.
I think it's
I think it's 12 something right now. I thought it was 12 something.
It was like 8 something or 7 something. It went up. I know that. I don't know what the exact number is.
Irregardless,
I pay no attention to it. I pay attention to the prevailing wage because that is what I pay my workers. It doesn't matter if it's a private job, a government job, public job.
So since we're talking about non-union, they're not paying into the fees that comes with the union, with the insurance and all the other stuff that they supply. So are you coming across a lot of issues with non-unions undercutting bids and getting the contracts instead of you guys because you are having to charge more?
100%, yeah. And that's what I was telling you about the wage allocations meeting, that happened yesterday. Of course we run into that. I mean, it's always been a thing. And Mac could probably even, speak more to the tune than I could because he's the one that's estimating and seeing, what the difference is across prices on projects. So, if you think about it, yeah, we have to pay our workers on average $45 an hour. That's just about what they make on the check. On top of that, they make another $22 and change, almost $23 on their fringe benefits. So we're pushing $66, $67 an hour.
And that's before you get 1 cent or supplies or breakdowns or
that's before
damages.
Well, that's before I pay my insurance. That's before I pay my work comp. That's before I pay my dues checkoff. That's before I do anything. So our billing rate, is massive. So if there is a non-union contractor that doesn't have that, like, let's say that $23 in fringe benefits, pension, so on, that $23, they can still charge 90% of what I charge, beat me every time by 10%, and then pocket the $20.
Understood. And then you throw an extra 10 guys on the job, $20 an hour. That's $2,500 a day.
Oh yeah,
that they can undercut just on labor.
I mean, we spend. I mean, as a company, I think we have 26 employees. I think we just hired 2. I think I spend $50,000 a week, which is an incomprehensible number to me personally. I mean, I grew up, with $30 in my bank account, and hey, with $30 you can get a 6-pack, you can get a pack of smokes, you can put $5 in your gas tank, and you can go to Taco Bell twice.
Absolutely.
And that was, and so now it's like, hey, I can make payroll twice. I can float the company mortgage. I can cover insurance. I can do these things, and so you think about it in kind of the same way. With the same discretion, it's just there are more zeros. And fortunately, and Mac knows, our dear friend is our controller, and she deals with that. So.
Yep. So you've skirted around. Tell me about rats. Tell me what you think a rat is. Let's tell me what you think a rat is.
Okay, I think that a rat, my personal definition and then the true definition are probably 2 different things. But my personal definition is somebody that works union, spends their time as a union member, becomes vested in the union, spends their time in the apprenticeship and training fund, goes through the program, this and that and this and that, so on, and then decides to take their knowledge to create a non-union company. I would consider that a rat.
I would think yours is a little more specific than what most people. I mean, back home, from the unions we're in and I was in and stuff, I mean, if you just worked non-union, you were considered a rat, a scab. You would. I
mean, a rat and a scab is 2 different things to me, though. A scab is somebody that works non-union because they didn't get a phone call. But that's the thing.
True, but
that's the thing is, like, if you didn't get a phone call from the union or any union contractor, like, there's probably a goddamn reason.
Yeah.
So let's go into that for a second, because I kind of think I know where you're going. And I actually had a conversation with Randy as we host this podcast together, and I said, here's what we're going to talk about and do. And he said, part of the problem with unions is that you get to stay in, et cetera, no matter what. And I thought, that is a true aspect. Then I also thought of initials KK and how quickly you can scrap a guy as soon as you see his bad product hit your wall and realize that's not a name I can have associated with my name anymore. So let's talk about what it's like in that contract for a second, where you do dictate who's on your crew, but your crew is still made up of the same team of everyone else's crew.
Okay, so also loaded.
Yeah. These are meant to be easy.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously you have to, have quality control, and you have to have, somebody maintaining the aspect of what is right and wrong. So obviously we have a sense of quality control, and like somebody has to be that guy. Ultimately, I don't have the say in it. It may seem like I do because I am in charge of so many people, but the thing is the boots on the ground see what is right and what is wrong. So, I mean, my foreman, the team that I put in place to help delegate, I've delegated these 3 men to all delegate their, 8 men, essentially. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that call me and say, this guy's not cutting it. I need somebody different. So yes, there have been people that have been let go. Obviously, I hate being that guy. I'm never going to put that on my foreman to let somebody go. I'll always walk up to them, hand them the check, say, hey, sorry you didn't cut it. Best luck on your next endeavor. I wish you nothing but the best. But, you know...
You're not going to fit here.
Well, I mean, eventually you have to have a line in the sand, and people are on one side or the other.
So, I mean, when you hire people, you hire them. Do you hire them through the hall, or do you hire them and then have them go through the hall?
So it's a mixture of both. If I want to raise my own bricklayer, if you want to, you know, put quotations on that, yeah, put a cub through the program. You know, I'll bring somebody in. I'll give them a letter of intent. I'll get them put into the system. I'll get them into the apprenticeship school, and I'll let them take their 3.5 years to go through our trade school, which is obviously, you know, DOL accredited as a true trade school. I mean, it's one of the best. I went through it. I love it. It's a wonderful training facility. I don't necessarily hire from the hall. I did find myself in a spot where I was begging for help. There was a specific company that was in a hole that we didn't dig, but we found ourselves in a spot where we were trying to help them out and ended up calling the hall, hiring a couple guys that I don't know, and they started this morning. I got both of their pieces of paperwork back this morning, and so far, I mean, no problems. But.
So what Ken-Zee and I were talking about earlier that I brought up, and I felt was a issue with the union, is that you may get rid of them and say, hey, here's your 2 checks. You know, it's just not going to cut it. Wish you the best of luck. Well, they go back to the hall. And then because the hall wants to keep that money flow coming in off of each person, they send them to the next person. And when they don't cut it there, they come back to the hall, and then they try to pawn them off on somebody else. And it's really a long process before the hall will go, hey, you're no longer going to be a member here. You've screwed up too many times, or just it's not working out. And I think that is the one problem with unions across the board. And it doesn't have to be labor, it doesn't have to be masons, just, you know, work unions, especially because in an office setting, you don't really get to dictate who comes and goes on a job site like you do in construction. Somebody in an office setting, well, they did this and this, the union fights for them, they're back in the chair the next week doing the same thing, and it's a very long drawn out process for a company to actually get rid of somebody. That's my fault with the union. Luckily, it's not as much in construction. You can get them off the job site, but they're going to another job site right after.
So yes. And I've ran into this problem. I've ran into workers that I don't know how are still members, how they still carry cards. I don't. I mean,
Blind squirrels find acorns.
You know, the stories that I could tell are probably not allowed even to be spoken. But so back to the issue of people coming from the hall and not getting qualified labor. Yeah, that is a massive issue that we have, and there is always the issue of, okay, I get this guy out here and he's not performing the way that I need a journey worker to perform. And obviously we let them go, and they go back to the hall. Sure, they call their BA, and the BA calls me and says, hey, what happened? I said, well, yeah, I mean, he's not qualified to be, you know, doing this and this and this. It's very discouraging. I mean, I'm sure as that worker, because they don't understand the issue. I don't know how else to explain it except for, you know, they do go to the next company, and then the next company lets them go, and then they go back to the hall, and then the next company lets them go, and then eventually, you know, they're blacklisted. But it's by their own fault. It's not by the hall. I mean, don't get me wrong though. I mean, we have had issues to where, so I pay fringe benefits on workers, right? So let's say you came out as somebody that didn't know anything about masonry.
You don't know shit about fuck day one.
There you go.
Quoting Ozark here.
No, that is quoting the Masonry Institute that I've learned.
Oh, yeah, that is in our contract.
In the handbook, page 1.
That's actually that's line 1 of the union signatories. You don't know shit about fuck. Just put your name.
Yeah, my wife says that every day. I don't know shit about fuck. But so let's say Randy comes out, right, and he doesn't know anything about masonry, but he claims to be a journey worker. He hasn't had the opportunity to get tested or evaluated through our apprenticeship training fund. Let's say the teacher wasn't available. They were, doing something out of state. We cover 4 states. Sometimes it happens, we don't have an instructor available to evaluate somebody, or they're teaching a class or doing something. We don't really have the time to do it, which I understand, and that's totally fine. But so somebody comes in, they go to a certain company, whatever, they start working, and they say, yeah, I'm hurting for help. I'm going to give them journeyman rate. So they're classified as a journey person. That's where it becomes troublesome because, they get laid off, and I get the phone call. I'm saying, hey, I need workers. I need, journey workers. And they say, well, I got this one journey worker that just got laid off because, I don't know, what do they call it when you haven't been there long enough?
I don't know the term the absence, I guess. I don't know the exact specific.
God damn it! I don't know why I can't think of it. I can't think of the term. But anyway,
you're saying like if you don't meet your hours though?
No. Like if somebody seniority.
Oh, okay.
Seniority. So there's guys that have been there longer, guys that have spent their whole career there. You're the new guy on the crew or whatever, so you get let go first.
Yeah.
So okay, well this guy lacks seniority, so which isn't an actual thing in our craft. Fortunately, it's more of quality of work. So there's no real seniority to the bench, unlike pipe fitters or operators or something like that. More technical trades tend to have the seniority rule when we don't. It's more quality of work. So you get a guy in, he comes in, another company says, yeah, we're just crying for help, so we're going to go ahead and pay him journeyman rate. Couldn't get evaluated, ends up getting brought in as a journey person, even though they aren't providing journey person, quality work, and then I'm the one that's stuck with them.
Yeah.
So I let them go. They end up at the next company, so on and so on and so on. So as you guys were asking, we ended up in a spot where one specific person just doesn't belong in our union as a journey person, and they won't accept any lower rate or accept the fate of the fact that they need to be evaluated and adjusted on their pay scale. And so now they're working non-union, which is...
So unions are almost the last pay for performance right now? To an extent, because, if you can keep getting fired and let go, you're at a certain point, if you can't perform, you're going to run out of companies.
Well, and yes and no. There is always,
There's always a few.
Well, there's always the non-union to go back to.
Yeah. Okay. What are you seeing with people's willingness to work? Because in this industry, we're not working, 8 to 4 Monday through Friday. Sometimes there's some longer hours, some weekends, that kind of stuff.
I can't wait to fight you on this with my question next.
Awesome.
Yes.
Most of the time, I think that I run a good enough crew, and I'm tooting my own horn here, that if I ask something of somebody, they'll do it. And I don't have any qualms from anybody. Now, that being said, if you're an electrician and you're stepping up pipe for 50 hours a week instead of 40, versus a bricklayer who's hooking concrete block for 50 hours versus 40, there's only so much you can squeak out of a person. It's really just how slick can you wear the boot? And at that point in time, and you like the pun there.
I'm smelling what you're stepping.
So how slick can you wear the boot? Is what can you actually get out of a person when you are requesting very, very physical labor from them?
Oh, yeah.
So when you're hooking, concrete block over stab bars and you're way up in the rafters and the guys are, ducking down and their hard hats banging on the rafters and all these different things, yeah, they're going to get worn out pretty quick. And so, we try our best not to work overtime.
Okay.
Have we lately? This past week, yes. But that's about it. That's about the only time in the past 4 years that I've ever asked anybody to work overtime.
Life dictates. I'm curious with the willingness to work that you brought up, and also speaking to 3 men in the room that are in their 30s here, younger generation. Mm-hmm. What's it like to be a contractor in the big dog game? Because I believe you're the only union mason contractor in town that's rocking in his 30s.
Man, you are right. I mean, I'm thinking of the two next, and they're probably both
mid-50s.
Well, no, at least 10 years older. I mean, they're 45 and 47, something like that.
Okay, but what's it like for you?
I mean, I think that regarding the younger generation, I don't have much of an issue. It's more the pay rate that has been allocated to me by somebody that had no say in it, i.e. me saying that I need to pay, $40 to somebody off the street.
Yeah.
That doesn't know anything about anything. Doesn't know shit about fuck.
But I think it also, does it harden you a little bit too to come in as the young guy?
I mean, so you're talking about me coming in as the young guy, not about my apprentices then.
No, I mean you're the young guy on the block.
Oh shit! I mean, I absolutely have to. I gotta piss on my territory if you want to hear it that way.
I mean, that's a good way to phrase it, I think.
Yeah, mark the territory.
Yeah, I mean, when people find out that I'm on the job, I make sure that they know that I'm on the job. And it sucks. I'm not that kind of person. That's not my personality. But it is what makes my life easy on the work side.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, there's a standard operating procedure, and if you're not going to meet this or if you're not going to perform at this level, then unfortunately you won't work here.
It's absolutely one of those things that I fight with day in and day out, and it doesn't matter if it is with my crew or myself versus the contractor. But yeah, I mean, quality of work is the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if somebody can't perform, it doesn't matter if it's an apprentice or myself. Yeah, I don't think that you deserve that spot in the world.
So let's take this away from unions for a second here, and let's go back to a whole new world of construction issues, which is supplier issues. It's popped up everywhere. It affects union, it affects non-union, right?
It's blown up, yeah.
And in your world, there's even a new guy in town, and that can convey some controversy in your world.
It absolutely does, yeah. So, I mean, quality of material is obviously huge. Something to union members specifically, Made in USA is big. I mean, all of our shirts are union made. I mean, everything that we try to do, we try to buy American. We try to use local contractors. That is something that is me doing my due diligence to pay a couple extra bucks to make sure that it supports our local community. Absolutely.
So how does it feel being the dumbest business owner ever? Because, I mean, you could save so many costs if you just got cheap Chinese shirts.
I could, buy from China.
I mean, let's just be real. You could Temu some hard hats, but
that's true.
Just to be clarified, you're dumb enough to keep spending American dollars in America. Why is that?
So
wait. Sorry.
No. That's a wonderful point. So yeah, I mean, I get the advertisements, on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and this and that. It says, 300 black and white T-shirts custom printed for $399.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, that's a lot of T-shirts. But in the same realm, I also have to think about the guys. I have to think about like my wants as a worker, not not my wants as a business owner, but my wants as a worker, and I have to abide by my own wants and desires as a worker. Because if there was a company that I wanted to work for, if there was ever a company that I wanted to work for, I want it to be my own. So yes, I am bad at running a business financially.
But it's because you support good causes.
But it's because I support American businesses. I support American workers. Obviously, I mean, I support union shops, printing shops. You know, I mean, most of everything that we buy around the shop are all union guys. I mean, the guy that comes out and works on our tractors, you know, I mean, he's a union operator. He's an oiler.
Yeah.
I mean, he's part of the haul. And I pay dearly, but you know, I know that I'm supporting his livelihood, his wife's livelihood, his kids, you know, his lake home, his, you know, whatever else he has, and I know that he's living a good life because people pay, you know, what he's asking, and I could pay somebody half the price.
Yeah. Well, we talked about earlier how, you know, you can't go around busting knees anymore as a union and everything.
It's not recommended.
It's not recommended, at least. So, I mean, the union has changed a lot over the last 50 years.
I agree.
What do you see the union as by the time you retire?
I see the union to be non-existent. I don't think that our union or any union will exist.
Do you think it's because, I don't know what the financial status is of like the bricklayers and all that kind of stuff, but I do know back in Illinois where I'm from, our labor hall was the only one that was in the black. Every other hall was running in the red.
I would say that like our union hall for our 1,300 members is absolutely in the black. We have, you know, great healthcare. We have we have 3 great pension programs. I mean, we're free and clear of a lot of things, but if we were to stop today, I think there's like 31 months in reserves today. So like if everybody were to stop working at this moment, we would have 31 months to pay our 1,600 retirees. And so like there's the issue is we have 1,300 active
paying for 1,600 retirees.
Exactly.
So I think you're coming across the same issue that everybody's having, even with like, you know, Social Security and all that stuff. You know, 50 years ago, we were living to be 55, 60 at best. Now
100%.
we're pushing 80, 90, and those people are still drawing on those funds. You know, a lot of the funds are made to you die before you get it, and that extra money gets to go towards a lot of other things.
Yeah, I mean, myself, I'm a socialist at heart. I mean, to the root of what socialism is. I mean, I think that the interstate program was the most amazing thing. The national parks are a very socialist programs, and union at its core is the most socialist thing that you can possibly do. You know, as a group, gather and take care of one, if needed.
All for the same pay, all for the, you know, that's true. I mean, the second something happens to somebody that is tragic, an accident or something, I know on the job site, the first thing is the hard hat comes out, gets passed around. Everybody's got a couple bucks in their pocket. It goes in there to try to help the family in any way possible.
Absolutely.
So it's a family. It's a brotherhood, sisterhood. It's everybody's there to take care of everybody. You don't see, you know, he's over here making $10 and I'm over here making $50. Everybody's getting the same pay, which is nice. But like you said, you don't know if it'll be around because will it be sustainable?
I don't think that our wage rate will be sustainable. I don't think that it's necessarily like a matter of. I've spoken with another local contractor, and his recommendation is to implement a new union that we all abide by, withdraw from our own individual unions, and start something called the Small Contractors Union, where, you know, if you have 30 people or less working for your company, you can fall within whatever trade you want if you're qualified to work for it. And, you know, and this is something that's, you know, obviously kind of a pipe dream. I don't think that it's ever going to be possible, at least within, you know, my realm of my personal company. But I think that it's a great idea. I think that, you know, taking care of your workers is my number one goal, union or not, I think if you take care of your workers, that is the ultimate goal. When it comes to how much the union draws from our total take home, I think that it's quite insane. I think that I think that all unions, all locals across Kansas City and otherwise are going to drive their small contractors out of business just because it costs too damn much.
I mean, just the in-house. I mean, you're looking at what? Probably $750,000 just to pay the paychecks of the people that are working in the hall, the BAs and the stewards and everything else.
Yeah, probably. I mean, fortunately, I guess fortunately for the union, the stewards don't draw pay. They just get their $16 worth of window dues per month waived. Mm-hmm. So, there's the knock.
That's fair.
Found it. Yeah, I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We probably have 8 business agents, the president, the office manager, the secretary, the treasurer. I mean, there's probably, I bet there's $1.5 million, double what you're saying, it just in salaries.
Is there a way to trim the fat off that just to help the workers?
I mean, I think so, and
it seems like a lot of people just to run that.
Can I throw mine here? The second you trim the fat, you hurt some other American worker.
I'm not saying take their job. They can go back out into the field and do what everybody else is doing. Bring in money instead of taking off the top.
I don't disagree, but right now you're at a age of social media and victimhood of the second that it happens to me, fuck you, I'm qualified. It doesn't matter what you think. And I think that that's an aspect here.
Well, it's either that or there's no more union. I mean, when you put it that way, it's, well, some cuts have to be made or we don't exist anymore.
So I think that Randy's right here, and Ken-Zee, I think that you're right as well.
Wait a minute, that can't fucking be.
That can't happen.
Randy and I have talked about this. Only one of us is right.
Death match, fight to the death.
The way that I see it is, yes, there can be fat trimmed. Obviously, I mean, there always can be. Mm-hmm. If we want to take Doge's business model into account, I mean, there can always be fat trimmed, right? Something can go away.
You just got to get people to work harder.
And, there are a lot of people that are being affected by that. Right. I mean, deeply.
I completely understand. I'm not here shitting on. I'm just saying, as a fact, the second you cut somebody, you hurt somebody.
Absolutely. So, yeah. I think that with our specific local union, there aren't enough members to sustain the dollar amount that we spend. Like I said, it's probably $1.5 million in salaries alone. Mm-hmm. What we pay on the mortgage for the hall, I don't know. What we pay on vehicles, insurance, cell phones, who knows? I mean, it could be upwards of $2.5 million, all said and done. I don't know. I haven't.
That seems realistic. I mean, it doesn't seem crazy.
Yeah, I haven't been to a union meeting that expresses the costs in a year. I went to the wage allocations meeting just to bump elbows with the boys and say hey and have a beer with them, whatever. But so going back to Ken-Zee, I stand corrected. It wouldn't hurt to get rid of about 4 BAs because you see these guys and these gals and they're driving around and they're talking to people and doing this and that and this and that. There's no true recruiting. There's no conversion from non-union to union. The people that they do get a hold of don't have the credentials to be union. Which is unfortunate for us because then they put the responsibility on the contractor to check those credentials.
Yeah, that's part of my job, to check credentials and OQs and all that kind of stuff when people show up on a job site. But with that being said, over in Illinois, I know they want one day a month you show up and take a test to find out if you're borderline intelligent enough to know the difference between a hammer and a screwdriver, and then they'll go through a hiring process. I mean, there's no, like you said, it's not recruiting. They may go out and recruit and say, hey, show up on this day or whatever. But yeah, there is a date posted every single month. You go there, you take a test. And if you pass that test, they will look at you and possibly bring you into the hall. It's not a recruiting system at all.
You know, I mean, I'm always looking for ways to better our own local, obviously, because anytime that our local benefits, I benefit.
Yeah, everybody benefits. The workers, the union, everybody.
Yeah, 100%.
I would stand to reason that anytime a mason, in this specific instance, is paid fairly, paid adequately, and puts good work in the wall, everyone benefits.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the trade benefits, just the craft itself benefits.
Correct.
So something that I was a part of, and has been many years ago, is called masonry camp.
Masonry camp?
I'm not shitting you. It's called masonry camp. And
This one time at masonry camp?
this one time at masonry camp,
I shoved a trowel up my...
up your cut hole,
Sorry.
your puncture wound.
Yes, I have a puncture wound in my leg right now. That said, we're on masonry.
So we had basically they
Well,
sent
whoever put that fence in, though, did a pretty damn good job.
I mean,
The hell to go through your leg?
it didn't go.
Was it anchored into some?
I bet you loved going to the mall, to that store with all the goth clothes called Off Topic.
It was off topic, but you brought up the hole, so
All right, so
masonry
camp. Masonry camp. So there's this thing that happens every 3 years about, and it happens at this place called IMI. It's the International Masonry Institute. It's in Bowie, Maryland. It's outside of DC. That's where our international headquarters is located. And you kind of put your name in a hat, and you hope to get elected to be the representative of the specific side of the trade. So you'll have, the tile guys. You'll have the acid floor guys. You'll have the precast guys. You'll have the brick guys. You'll have the block guys.
Do you pack your jammies for s'more hour?
They don't allow alcohol in the dorms. So they put
Find out the fun way did you at Masonry camp?
They put you up for a week, right? And so for that week, I mean, you're spending time with 50 architects that they send from every state. And my job as the representative of the brick side of the trade at masonry camp. Right?
See how he said architects and not engineers? Engineers are not allowed.
No, well, no engineers, just architects. So the goal is to, as a representative of your craft, is to get these architects to understand the benefits of drawings with masonry. And so, we'd say, hey, draw what you want. We'll try to build it for you. And we'd do it in a controlled space, and we'd have a place to build these things. And so, like, I was working on I was the brick representative, the specific year. It's probably been 10 years now. But it was one of the most wonderful experiences, and I made friends with a bunch of these architects. Some of them were from Boston, New York, Quebec. I mean, we had people from all over the place.
Now, how do you get engineers to actually work with the contractor? Because I haven't learned a way to do it yet.
No, I haven't either. I do have one specific example. It was one of the first days that I worked for another contractor that I still work closely with, a great and wonderful friend. And I showed up on his job site, and there was a structural engineer there, and he was telling me, hey, you need to put a 4-inch piece of block up against this existing door jamb. You need to shove a number 5 rebar in it, and you need to grout it, and then, knock the shoring out. And I told him, I said, hey, man, this will never hold. It's going to fall over. It's going to buckle. Doesn't matter if you put a door in it. Doesn't matter if you put a frame in it. Doesn't matter what you're doing. And the structural engineer came out. I said, I'm not knocking the shoring out. And he was hell-bent on trying to make me do it. And so I asked him, I invited him, rather, to hold my hammer and knock it out himself. and see if it falls down.
Did you do that politically correct? Because having known you for at least a week,
I feel like it wasn't that.
Did you invite him to hold your hammer with a, here, would you like to hold my hammer?
No, I said, please, sir, hold my hammer.
Oh, that's how you said it.
Yes.
Got it.
So,
all right.
Anyway,
I know this is a podcast about perspectives, but I feel like that wasn't quite the perspective that happened.
That's not what he said.
this is what legitimately what happened.
I've never heard you be that nice in church, bitch.
In church? So anyway, it was masonry camp last time we talked. But so he took my hammer in his hand gingerly and smacked the 2x4 that was, or 2x6 rather, that was holding up the door header and all of the things that I just built, told him that it wouldn't work, argued it the whole entire time, and an entire wall fell down. And I explained to my contractor, this is about the time that you put it on a ticket and we'll rebuild it. Per, you know, as a qualified person, you know, every once in a while you have to justify your own work and you have to explain, hey, you know, I understand this a little bit better than the person that draws it on paper. And so, yeah, there are architects that we argue with. There are structural engineers that we argue with. There are inspectors that we argue with.
Well, here's a perfect story. I was out on a job site.
Okay.
I had a engineer roll through from St. Louis on his way to Kansas City. We were about an hour outside of Kansas City working. Mm-hmm. He showed up and said, hey, I had a little extra time. I've never been on a job site before, and I wanted to see what it looked like. And now he is the lead engineer of the company. He does great work. He works well with us. He knows what he's doing. But when he started, they had no idea. They just get on a computer, draw some things, not seeing things, not knowing what the real world application is.
Let me interrupt you. You have an engineer you can't bitch about because he came out to the job site, learned it, and is good at his job now?
One.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
One.
All right, pretty picture architect fan. I'm following what you're saying here. Yes, I think that Neal is a person that did not learn to swim online. I think there's a learn by doing. I think there's a professional expertise.
Absolutely.
And at the end of the day, we need to trust some of the doers, not the thinkers. We need to trust the thinkers too. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah,
math for a reason. How do you correct it? How do you rectify that delta between college and bricklayer?
Well, I think that there is almost a language that's spoken, and I think that. Ken-Zee, you've experienced me speaking that language.
Yep.
So there's almost like a salesperson's pitch, right? So ultimately, I am selling my product, my crew, my craftsmanship, you know, and saying, hey, I can do it for this amount of money. I can do it this well. I can do it this much faster. I will give you this many less headaches. And I think that there is a almost a sales pitch that comes along with the estimating and the project management side. So when it does come down to it, I have to have that blatant and ultimate trust in my crew, in my journeyman, in my foreman, in my you know, cubs, as you would. And it does come down to that. Can I do it or can I not? And do I trust my men to do it or do I not? So there is that sales pitch that comes with it. It's kind of a shift in who I normally am.
But how do you fix the delta between your crew, who has never been to college, but all these college people need your crew to build their buildings? Well, so how do you fix that delta?
Well, I mean, I am the bridge. I am the bridge of that gap.
So you're arguing is communication strictly?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Here's one thing that I've noticed and observed is, yes, these people that come out of college are usually very smart, very book smart. Mathematics are their key and they are great at it. But also that 6'4" big dumb idiot that is putting it all together, there's a good chance that they're actually smarter than that engineer. I have met some of the smartest people out there busting their ass just because they love the job. They could be doing something completely different. and because they have the intelligence to do something different than what they're doing, but they love their job. And they're some of the smartest people I've met.
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because you're leading into what I think is wrong. I think mommy and daddy and college in 1990 popped up, and I think everyone said go to college.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that we created a lot of construction jobs that are middlemen to run or manage the construction job that don't put boots on the ground.
Yeah.
And when they do, it's a dry day. It's for 30 minutes. They're ostrich foreskin boots, and you know they're going to stay clean. Shots fired. Love you, buddy. That said, I truly think that you got too many of these PMs, PEs, CMs, whatever the fuck you want to give them initials-wise, project managers, project engineers, construction managers.
And they all have too many meetings because they have meetings that they have too many meetings.
Right.
You want to go down? You want to have another podcast tomorrow?
And I guess where I'm at is that to me is what's wrong with construction right now, and that it ties in. It's relativism, okay? I'll fucking admit it. It's relativism. But we have people right now that have no idea how construction works, getting degrees in construction. They learn to weld in 4 minutes on a coupon, and then they're able to inspect the second they get out of school.
It's true.
We have people that come out, swing the real hammers, swing the real labor.
Let's be honest. You have inspectors that have never done this stuff before that are telling these people that are doing it how to do it.
And here's my whole problem with the whole kit and caboodle. The second you have someone in the computer screen dictating a job, running the job because they see the dollars, they see the progress on each wall, they watch and they track, and they're following the projections and everything, right? That's great. But the second that they have no fucking clue how construction works in the real world, how they have no idea when their guy just needs a Red Bull that morning to make his productivity 80 block instead of 70 block. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Red Bull gives you wings. I'm saying fucking listening to your guys, and just when one of these guys is having a rough morning and says, you know what, I was running behind, I got out the door late, I'd love a cup of coffee. And if you're walking by and you hear a guy say, I'd like a cup of coffee, and you provide that, you have a different gap. You have a different gap of what's wrong. And right now we have too many fucking people caught behind their computer screens, watching YouTube, not fucking caring, doing whatever secondary bidding on whatever, and they're not doing their goddamn jobs. And their goddamn job is to know how that job site operates and where their guys are, where the progress is, how much material's on the ground, when do I need to order it. But we're too fucking busy. We're too fucking busy because we don't care. And the thing is, we have young green college graduates that have never gotten their hands dirty. Not once did mommy and daddy pay for dirt to get under our nails, but they made goddamn sure we got into K-State so that we could make a CM degree look good.
I think the good thing about it, though, is that you have people like Neal, who is that middleman that kind of has to be that buffer in between, but it makes his job a whole lot harder. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm talking for you, but
Go for it.
well, I'm just saying, like
Most people do.
I'm just saying that you have to be that middle buffer, and you probably hate it at times because you have to be the go-between when you probably shouldn't.
So you're absolutely right, and I think that Ken-Zee here is right too.
Absolutely.
And I've fought this fight every day for the past 4.5, 5 years. Whenever I incorporated, I run into this problem to where, like we were just talking about, inspectors don't know how a job is put together. For instance, Ken-Zee and I were talking today about how one of my favorite things that has happened in a long time was one of my foremen called the inspection company at 6:30 this morning and said, hey, I need an inspection at 11 o'clock. And the scheduler said, well, I can't schedule that. I need 24 hours notice. He goes, well, I just started the job this morning, and I'm letting you know that we're there. And he goes, well, it's not going to work with our schedule. I won't accept it, this and that and this and that. And he said, well, if you want to talk about scheduling, schedule this. I want an inspector here every single day from 6 to 4:30. And, you know, essentially the guy changed his tune. He said, okay, all right, I'll get, and there was an inspector there 20 minutes later and it was no issue. But
it's amazing how fast that works out when you make a few idle threads.
But that's the thing is the inspection scheduler is probably somebody that has some kind of business degree. But, you know, there is such a thing as the school of hard knocks. I mean, I really do think it exists. And so, like you're saying, yeah, your parents got you into K-State or made sure that your CM degree looks good or whatever, so on and so on. You know, I never went to college. My dad...
You idiot.
My dad put me in the bricklayers.
That's college, baby.
To scare me into college. He put me with the grumbliest group he could find. He's like, this will get him back in.
How'd that work?
Well, I mean,
He fit right the fuck in.
I was like,
Right.
what's up, boys?
What's up, fuckers?
Can I bum a cigarette?
He walked in. I don't know shit about fuck. Give me a beer.
Yeah.
So
Well, it worked great. Yeah, it worked great.
Let's switch our tunes, fellas. I want to start here on Randy, actually, and I want to get both of your takes.
Sure.
Randy, I know that masonry is not your division,
Nope.
but conceptually tonight you've obviously taken part here. What do you think? Do you have a quick fix? Do you have any ideas on a quick fix? Do you have a concept of
Quick
a
fix
plan?
to what specifically?
What's wrong with unions? The core concept here, like what's wrong with construction, union, non-union, versus RAP, versus scab, versus you name it.
I think the problem that we're gonna have. I don't think there's a huge problem right this second. I think the big problem is coming.
Well, that means there's a problem.
There is, and I think it's going to come to a head, and you're going to see it actually play out in real time. Is that what we talked about earlier? The cost, the pensions, trying to cover everything, and it's going to be cheaper to get the same qualified workers to come on the job and complete it that is non-union, because you can cut out that extra $30-$40 an hour. You don't have to keep that building with the BA in it and everything else. You have a construction company, the owner, his couple guys, and that's it. That takes away a lot of the overhead. And when that starts happening, you're not going to have the money coming in to complete the pensions. And I don't know what you do once that happens.
So I 1,000% agree with you. That is also what your statement just now, you know, keeping overhead low, making sure that you aren't insuring too many things, too many vehicles, too many this, too many that. You know, making sure that the cost of your operating facility is low.
Well, as a business owner, I'm sure you've seen multiple people come in to the business, and I've seen it across multiple businesses, not just union, non-union. They come in, they get a few contracts. All of a sudden, they've tripled their guys. They have the a fleet of vehicles. They have multiple buildings, multiple warehouses, this, that, and the other, and they lose two big contracts, and they no longer exist anymore because they can't make those payments because they grew way too fast and couldn't keep up.
So
that's totally fair. So I'm gonna go back to
go ahead and tackle yours. I want to bring up another one.
So I'm gonna go back to Randy's original. So yes. So back to the qualified help and the cost of overhead. That is why we are probably one of the least expensive union contractors in Kansas City when it comes to masonry. That is why we are winning union contracts rather, hand over fist. This guy right here. And that is why we are able to keep things rolling. And I told Ken-Zee today, I said, hey man, we got a lull for a month. I need you to buy a job.
Okay.
We have the money to do it. We are fortunate to have the manpower to be able to, we have a good enough crew, and we've gained enough trust in our men that we can make enough money on one job to buy the next, to float us into the next, just to make sure that everybody has a position at this company. Now, so when we go into, yeah, okay, well, you grow too fast and this and that and this and that. Yeah, I feel like I've grown way too fast, so extremely fast. When I started this thing, I was building front stoops by myself just trying to pay the mortgage. I mean, it was just one of those things. And I got a phone call from a guy, and he said, "Hey, do you know how to build stone piers?" I said, "Yeah, I can build stone piers. What do you need?" He said, "Well, I need some stone piers built." He gave me an address. The guy with a sudden draw, he goes, "Yeah, my name is Grant. I'm down here in Mississippi. I need to come up here to this address." And I'm like, it sounded sketchy, but I was like,
at that point, you're starving, trying to break out,
and trying to build a couple of stone piers, maybe make a few $100, and so I called my dad. I said, "Hey, you want to go grab lunch?" And I got to go look at this job up in Leavenworth. And sure as shit, we get up there, and it's the National Cemetery. It's the Leavenworth National Cemetery.
Oh wow!
And the guy wants 29 6-foot wide, 8-foot deep, 12-foot tall stone piers built. And Dad and I are standing there, and we're way up on the hill with all the white headstones. And I'm going, this is no fucking side job. This is no front stoop. And so I called the union hall because I needed help. I mean, I knew that if I called a couple of buddies of mine and I pulled some strings, that I could get the help that I needed. I could get what I needed.
Sorry, just adjusting stitches here, fellas. Sorry.
And I did. And Joe, who you've had here on this podcast regarding his car accident, he was my first guy.
Nice. And you hired the most broken fucking individual as your first.
He wasn't in the wreck at that point, dude. He was he's still a great. I mean, the hardest working guy.
Shut the fuck up for a second here. This is why you're here tonight. I like to feature my friends, and I like to feature people on here. And I know Randy does too. And this is our goal is to have a podcast to bring people up. Okay.
Sure.
What you just said is something that I wanted to focus on as a real point. And this is you're a construction company. You hired someone as a cub. He comes through your program. He gets into a multiple $1 million wreck. He's a multiple $1 million man in surgeries now. You've stuck it out. You've kept this fucking guy who is, he walks with a little hitch in the giddy up. He's got different surgeries this way from Sunday, and we've talked to him here.
Yeah.
He's the nicest fucking human you've ever talked to.
100%.
How do you keep around? How do you have this conscience in construction today?
Well, I would say because it goes both ways. I think that Joe specifically and I have a mutual respect for one another. He knows that I'll fight for him as long as he fights for me. And I think that symbiotic relationship is understood between all of my crew members and myself, that the crew that I have doesn't exist without me, but I don't exist. H and Paris Builders, in quotations here, doesn't exist without the crew. So as long as there is that mutual respect, that symbiotic relationship, the understanding that the both of us rely on one of another, then we are in a spot that benefits the both of us. So the next person that comes to work here, the next person that does work for us, is working hard for their spot, isn't only working hard for just their spot, they're working hard for the company, which guarantees them a spot for forever.
So how do you feel about construction companies that are based off of investment groups, and with that comes a fiduciary responsibility?
Are we talking about your past employers here?
No, I'm talking about in general, corporate construction in general.
It's becoming more common. I've experienced it in my professional career. That
I'm calling it corporate construction.
I've been offered money for this company. I won't take it.
What I'm asking you is, if you have a small company where you're arguing, I work for my guys work for me, everyone gets a paycheck, we all go home happy. If you have a job that's not meant to get rich, you have a job that's meant to do good. But what I guess I'm struggling here is, the second that you have a group of people that get to dictate your profit, how does construction manage to maintain a team?
Not only that, with their hands out too, because they have to get paid first because they're the investors.
Right. So how do you have a team based? How do you have a morale based company that moves forward?
The second that there's an investor group involved, or even trying to become involved, is the second that I'll bow out I will have a fucking yard sale.
Why?
For dignity. For the sake of
I want to see you tear up. I want you to tell everyone here, because you can't fire 20 people plus 25, 30 people.
I'll say no till the day I die. And you know, my wife will hate me for saying this, but that's the thing is, like, you know, capitalism is one thing, right? Small business ownership, I think, is also one thing. I think that they do have to coincide, but I don't think that they have to rely on one another. I mean, I understand that, like, making a profit to be able to survive is one thing, and then capitalism in its most ultimate form is another thing. So yeah, if there were an investment group that said, hey Neal, I'm gonna come buy you out, I'll give you $20 million, I'd look at it and go, man, you know, I'd love to be the bad guy, but I'd rather be the good guy. And so that is the ultimate reason why we're talking. What is wrong with unions? I think it's because people have a fucking heart.
And I think that a lot of, to add to what you were just saying, I think a lot of people lose sight that union contractors, non-union contractors, if you're doing right by your employees, you're doing right by your people, we typically don't have any issue or at bat. No. But it turns into the second that corruption becomes at play, and you start paying immigrants under the table, and they're not fair wages, and you're undercutting jobs, etc., or you're taking advantage of your people for what you can undercut a job just to pocket it. We've seen it all. Randy, you've seen it in your industry, I'm sure. And that is, I think, what's wrong with corruption or what's wrong with construction is you get people who realize you can be greedy. It can be a cash grab if you want to be a shithead.
It can be. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've talked about specific people in 6-wheeled Jeeps.
Trust me, we're right there on the same page. And that's one of those things that in my own personal sense here, talking from my heart, that's the only reason I'm willing to work for you. It's the only reason I'm willing to be a part of it. I left corporate construction. I left construction for engineering. I left construction for design. I left construction for corporate. And I left construction for everything.
You left engineering for project management, and then you left project management for me.
Yeah. And now I have stitches in my ass. So,
and another thing I've seen too is that, like, you guys are putting bids together for companies to build things. I have seen where just one person in a company is trying to save their company money and starts making cuts that starts affecting everybody. And if not reeled in, it could get a little out of control, and it's everybody starts hurting from just one person. Yeah. So all it takes is one bad apple in that group to really bring down morale, bring down standards, bring down a lot of different things across the board.
So one of the things that I'd like to address that you just said is teamwork.
Yep.
And part of the struggle with teamwork in construction is not everyone has the same job. You know, there's a lot of people in construction who do have a Bluetooth job. You can do it wirelessly. You can do it from connection wherever you have internet. A lot of people have the job that is hands-on. But the day that it's cold, you're driving out there and you're doing it. And where I struggle with this is there's a delta of appreciation. Because a lot of people, and I'm not tooting my horn here, I'm just saying, if you have an estimating department in construction that sells your job, and then you have a PM that is going to make sure that you have the money for the job, and then you have a crew that's going to run the job, it takes all parts of that. No one person wins that project. That's a team effort.
It does, but then you get into the whole, where I'm speaking from, is like you have the company that hires you. You put in a bid to this company and they hire you. Well, this company's job, that one person in that company's job may be to save that company the most money possible, and starts making decisions on behalf of the company that affects the actual group that has the teamwork, that has the right attitude, that has this, that, and the other. And this person is the gatekeeper and causing more issues to complete that job than what it should take.
This has to be more personal. No.
This would be more my job than anybody's. Absolutely. So we do experience essentially goalies,
Yep.
So you run into project schedule delays, you run into all these different issues, you run into site work, or you run into bad weather, or you run into...
And that's not even counting the holdups on permits and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, and so when you sign your name on the dotted line at the contract, when it begins, and they say, hey, here we go, we're going, you're expected to be done by X date. Right? Something else holds it up. Something else holds it up. Something else. And so all of a sudden, you're 4 months behind. And like I said, at the very beginning of this, it's a hole that we didn't dig that we're trying to get ourselves out of.
Yeah.
And not only because we're trying to help that specific contractor and we are trying to make sure that we make good by them.
Well, in a way, it's kind of what you signed up for. But, and then it gets, stuff happens that's out of the realm of your responsibility.
It is. And so my expectation was that we'd have $1 million more in the bank, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
God, I need your drug dealer's info.
Well, I mean, they deal in brick and block, but
you got kilos, you said?
But, bricks and blocks.
Bricks and blocks.
But so, which are also the name of our two shop cats, Brick and Block. So we do have two cats there. But yeah, so I mean, so you run into that, you run into this, and then also they're saying, hey, help us out of this hole. We want your entire crew. We'll give you everything that we got. You give us everything that you got. And I also have to remind them, hey, you aren't our only client. You aren't the only person that exists in this world. Now, they might be the biggest in town, but it doesn't make them the only one in town.
And that's when you have to start walking that tightrope,
and
because
that's
you
where,
want to keep them happy
and that's
and
where
keep the money coming.
That's where I have to be the salesperson. That's where I have to tell Ken-Zee to hang up the phone.
And to clarify,
don't make that phone call.
But to clarify that tightrope, and Randy, you would love, and I know you know this, the delicate balance of that tightrope is just because you're bigger or have more money doesn't make you right.
No.
But if you have an entire floor dedicated to legal,
then all
you
of a sudden,
you know that everybody there is wrong.
And that's something that I want to point out. With what's wrong in construction. Again, let's go back into this. And this is union, non-union. The big dog in town hires you and signs your checks, right?
Sure do.
So when the big dog in town tells you, don't use A, use B, how hard is that to deal with?
It doesn't bother me. I've never found myself in that situation.
But do you think they have a stronghold in the dictation?
You and I kind of touched very, very briefly on this conversation at a specific place on 9th and Pennsylvania with one of our suppliers. I don't think that exists. I don't think that people have their hands in that pot. I think that there is a cookie jar. I think that there are people that...
How hard is it to navigate for you as a business owner, though?
It's there's another contractor or another supplier that came in town that obviously stirred a pot. And they stirred it well enough that we had out-of-town representatives of a multinational, global conglomerate corporation come knocking on my door and taking me and you and somebody else to afternoon beers. And I ended up, spending the entire next day with them. I mean, yeah, of course it's a thing.
So my ask is, how difficult is it?
Not. I mean, the thing is me paying for my own labor to appease this situation that I'm in is the biggest cost, because my time might only be as valuable as what is on my paycheck, but where could it be more well spent?
Okay, I get you.
I had one more question.
Sure.
So we are into the age of computers and AI and everything.
Is AI going to take masonry jobs? Are you going here?
No, I'm just saying, in construction, do you think that humans will become a scarcity? Or do you think that... I don't see it really ever happening, because...
I don't see it ever happening.
I mean, so like for masonry specifically, there is
a robot,
an exoskeleton that you suit up in, and it makes a block 1 pound.
There's also a thing called a mule that you can hang from a hydromobile. There's a thing called SAM. It's a semi-automated mason. It takes 3 laborers to run it. I can lay more brick than it in a day myself with 1 laborer. There is no way, at least in our lifetime, that masonry specifically will be taken by any kind of
Well, it's
machine.
like I've seen they've got now office buildings where operators go in and will run machinery from a desk, and we'll hit a button, and then we'll jump across the country and run it. But my thing is, you still have to legally spot stuff, look for stuff. If you're not in an open field with nothing in it, it's kind of irrelevant. I mean, you really can't.
100%. Yeah.
So I think we're a long ways off before the skilled contractor goes away in any form at all.
I think what you would see next is in gigantic urban settings. In time, I think you'll see the exoskeletons that assist and allow bricklayers to lay block that weigh a pound, according to them, in a day, rather than
112.
a machine that comes in and replaces a person. I think you see
which is actually great, because you don't get rid of the person.
Help the person.
You could actually probably end up cutting down insurance costs and everything, because you're cutting down wear and tear, injuries. You're keeping your guys healthy, so you're not worrying about, well, he just blew out his knee, he's down for this X amount of days. So I fully welcome that kind of technology, because I think that will help. It won't take jobs, but it will help those that have the jobs.
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent for any kind of assisting agent, be it a mule or an exoskeleton or whatever.
Work smarter, not harder.
Work smarter, not harder. I mean, obviously, technology is obviously going to grow. It's going to be implemented into the construction, fields, bricklaying and not. But as far as the trained eye, there's no AI that can take that. And, transhumanism is obviously scary to a lot of people. It's something that's not, it's kind of eerie to a lot of folks.
It's the first time I think someone said transhumanism on this podcast. So I think
I know it's the first time.
Be a little wilded out by that. So to clarify, what he just said is
transhumanism. If you have like a robotic arm or so, think iRobot, and you think Will Smith, and you think
we're on the same page. I love that you said it.
But so like that, Will Smith could probably lift a block and it'd probably feel like a pound to him in that movie. So transhumanism obviously is an eerie subject. It's not something that,
so it's not a woman robot that wants to be a man.
Jesus,
dang, dude!
I'm just making sure.
Jesus,
no,
that's not it.
I really do think that technology is going to take its hold in every field. I don't think that it's gonna be just construction. I think that construction is the next big proponent to take on technology. I hope that it is. I really do. I hope that there are things that help our workers live a long life, have a good career, be able to retire early, and be able to retire healthy.
Yeah,
and not send them off down the disability pipeline. I got disability, Social Security.
I've seen a lot of careers end, perfectly healthy and fine, and then just they have to end their last year or two that they had left on disability.
Exactly, and I hate that. I hate that, especially in a craft like ours that's so specific. There's so much mechanicism to it that people are. There is that aspect of the trained eye, but there's also the aspect of just really fucking heavy material. And so you got 62-and-a-half-year-old guys up there getting ready to retire, and they're hucking 100-pound blocks over rebar up in rafters of buildings.
I was gonna say, you look at some of these guys,
they're the happiest guys doing it.
Well, they're the happiest.
They love
Sharky
it,
loves our lives.
But you look at some of these guys and you're like, oh, that guy's old and frail. Then you watch him lift up 400 pounds and you're like, oh shit.
Well, they say
they've been doing this a day or two.
They say the average bricklayer, the average mason lifts two standard SUVs a day.
So I will say, the one thing I learned real fast is that if you ever are going to get into a fight, bricklayer's a good second to have behind your ass.
Well,
pretty much.
Real good second.
there's 3 badasses in the world, and the other 2 send Ken-Zee Christmas cards.
That's right.
So there you go.
So let me ask you a final thought wrap up, right?
Yeah.
Let's Randy, I want to hear your thoughts first here. This is generalized. I know that we're in different industries, but we also have a lot of crossovers here.
Absolutely.
So, generalized. What do we do to fix construction? And I say that as a non-union versus union, if we could bring everyone on the same page, what do we do to fix construction?
Man, that's a tough one. There's a lot of things that we can do, and there's a lot of things you can't do.
My boss would say that's loaded.
It's very loaded.
No, I have an easy answer.
Oh, you can't go yet.
Okay.
So my answer is, I think that we have to all get on the same page with the union, non-union. Just because a company may not fall in the specs of union, as long as they're paying their people well, they are following the laws, they are certifying their people, that we can all live in the same realm with each other. Another thing is cutting corners in the construction industry is a big problem. Undercutting is a big problem. You're always going to have that, because that's that competition of capitalism that allows. But here's the problem with it: when you start undercutting, underbidding, you start cutting corners elsewhere. The one thing that I do praise the union for is it has given people the stop work authority without fear of being fired. You can stop in unsafe environments. And I think that is one of the greatest things the union's done over pay, is bringing a safety aspect to the job site. And you can be safe without repercussions. But
how do we fix it?
I think...
Fix it, babe. Fix it.
I don't think we can. I don't think there's a way to directly fix everything that's wrong with union, non-union construction. I think it'll play itself out in the future, and we'll see what happens. But right this second, I don't think there's a good fix personally that I can come up with.
Neal, how are you fixing construction?
If I were to fix construction, I would definitely, kind of bank shot off of Randy here. I would say that, like you said, it provides a safe workplace, all those good things. I mean, it provides you a sense of voice, a sense of self, a sense of, brotherhood in the union itself. But I think that licensing all trades and creating licensure, so qualified manpower for all trades, so carpenters, bricklayers, cement masons, because if you think about, plumbers, electricians, if you think about HVAC, these are licensable trades, right? They're just as good or bad as bricklayers, carpenters, cement masons, these different types of things. If we follow the standard of the technical or mechanical trades, make it licensable.
I mean, you have to have a license for damn near everything: to cut hair, to electricity, to drive a car, to
What you're arguing, though,
not to lay brick,
is
not to finish concrete, not to frame a house.
But would you do you guys have to follow any OQs?
I mean,
would you consider that a license?
No.
Okay.
So here,
so Lee Summit, I have to be licensed to lay brick as a contractor.
Yeah.
But none of my men have to have licenses. To lay in Lee Summit.
It's just a tax fee to make sure the city gets their cut.
So I got to give them their 1%.
So where I stand with this is a very different aspect, and it doesn't fight for or against unions. It starts simply with the fucking children. And we have a generation that is coming up that has no fucking shop class in school. They have no anything. We have to be the low end of society. We got to be the dropouts, or the ones who can't get math right to get a fucking mechanic out for go to lunch and learn a car. We took that away from children. We took away the ability to learn shop, automotive,
anything hands-on.
Exactly. And where I think about this all right now is, how many fucking dads have daughters, and you know, I laugh because I've got a lot of friends with girls, right? Whatever. It's cool. Nothing against it, not having kids. All of them say the same thing. My girl's going to know how to change her tire. You know what? Your daughter should know how to screw together 2x4s. Your daughter should know how to change her oil. And your daughter should know how to do a small brick repair. And all of that could be accomplished in fucking school like it used to. And I mean, let's be real. When boomers went to school, do you think hod carrying and bricklaying was a shitty you didn't go to school? Or was that an honorable you went and earned a decent day pay? It was a fucking career. It was a real thing to do at a real time for people that needed it. And now we've gotten so hodgepodge bullshit and pussified.
Well, the problem is, on a job site, it's really tough to put up a camera and dance with a 20-pound brick in your hand. That's how everybody wants to make their money now.
But where I'm going back is the problem comes to society and education and the fact that we push so hard for these kids to learn Excel and so hard for them to learn
But there's only so many spaces for those people.
There are. And the thing about it, we forget to tell people we have to build buildings to house these fucking people doing tech support.
Everything that you just said is rather replaceable by AI. And we've already discussed that getting out in the field and doing this stuff is a long way off from being replaced by that.
I mean, I think that sticking a bolt in iron, if you're building a high rise, isn't gonna happen by a robot. I think that laying a brick by eye will never happen by a robot. I think that you know, framing up houses, I think that pouring a good slab of concrete isn't ever going to happen by AI. Now, you might get a vibrating screed. I mean, you might have something that helps the worker, but you'll never eliminate the
lasers
worker.
and calculators and all that stuff.
Eliminate the worker.
It becomes utilizing AI as a tool. And again, it turns into, okay, Neal has a company here and we've got the rainy day fund. So what we're going to do is we are going to get a couple of these exosuits. And we're going to give them to our aces because if they can lay this many brick, this many block in a day as full weight, guess what they can do if they weigh an ounce?
Yeah.
And at that point, I think you have a very definitive future where to go into construction, you have to have a basic mechanics set of tools, school, and that's because you're going to have to learn to work on your own stuff.
Well, leave a comment. Let us know what you think's wrong with the union, what's wrong with construction, and thanks for listening. See you next week.